to SmartBuild webinar. Keith is joining here. Keith is our illustrious leader. And so we'll give a few more minutes here for people to join in. And then Keith will kick us off in a couple minutes here.
Yeah, sounds good, Sean. Do you know how many pre-registered attendees we had for today, by chance?
I looked at the list. I didn't look at the number,
Okay.
but I think it was maybe about 45. I can check. Let me check here.
Yeah, let's check real quick because we're up to 35 already, and I just want to make sure we have everybody who wants to attend to be here.
Mhm. I got to open my email here. Survey says survey says 42.
We're up to 39 already, so we just about got a quorum. Actually, I think probably we should just, oh, now we're up to 40, so I think probably that's good. So, hey, Sean, question, should we have, a couple people have their cameras on, does that degrade our throughput at all? Does it make any difference?
I don't know if it does for everybody, but it might for them. Paul, do you have
Okay. All right,
Yeah,
so a
yeah.
couple
It
people,
take
couple people have their camera on. Recommend that you do go ahead and deactivate your camera just so we get the optimum throughput here. So, anyway, welcome everybody to, we're up to 43. No, I think we got, okay, we got a quorum. Hi, everybody. This is Keith, president of SmartBuild. Welcome to our webinar for 1.97. Just a quick overview before I hand it over to Sean McFeely. Sean's our product manager. And the goal today is he's going to walk you through the next release, which when's it due to post live? Sean, is that a week from today?
Yeah, we're looking early next week, but we'll
Early
keep
next week.
you
Okay.
posted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's in beta. It's in beta mode right now. If anybody wants to go in and check it and test it out, and if you have any problem doing that, just call our support line. They'll tell you how to sign up for beta. But anyway, we're going to go through that today. We usually consume about 35 or 40 minutes showing new features. And then I really like this part of the session. Then we open it up for Q&A. And that end of that category, pretty much anything goes. Um, Keep in mind that we're very, very customer driven. So we rely on our customers to tell us what's important to them. Okay. And that's why you typically see what you see in these releases. We've been doing this since we started this whole process almost 8 years ago, and I think it's safe to say that's what our customers appreciate, is that the overwhelming majority of the resources, the revenue that we bring in, goes towards this software development effort. And our goal is to continue to fine tune the software and make it what helps you guys run more successful businesses. That's our goal. So, rules of the road when we're doing this, we mute everybody while Sean is walking through for obvious reasons. It'd be a Tower of Babel otherwise. However, we want to get your inputs interactively, your questions, even your observations, while Sean is going through this process. So you feel free to hit the chat box in the upper right-hand corner, issue your question or your comments. We'll have one of our team members will field those questions and text them to Sean so that even through the presentation portion of today's meeting, he can reply and respond. So don't hesitate to do that. And then, like I said, at the tail end, we'll open up Q&A. And if we run over at the end of the hour, uh, that's fine. We usually stick around until the last people leave. So anyway, that's kind of the idea. And just for looking into the future, um, some high priority items. The next big ticket item that we're looking at, we've had a ton of requests for, will be stairway design. Okay. And especially for the barn dominium market, that's going to be really important for people. We know the platform framing was high on the list as well. But I just reiterate, we respond to our customer requests and we look at consensus. So it is important for you to thoughtfully let us know what's important to you, and that's how we figure out where we're going next. So with that, I think I'll hand it over to Sean, and I hope everybody likes what you see. All yours, Sean.
All right, thank you. Okay, I'm going to share my screen here. All right, so I'm going to start in a job, and you can see a simple building here. Yeah, I'm going to get out of this job in a second here, and we'll go into the settings just to see some important setup. The idea is to demonstrate these to you, but also to give you kind of a roadmap to be able to set these up yourself. And also, like Keith mentioned, this is on the beta site. I am on my beta site here. This is not going to be available to you on your live site until next week, and we'll keep you posted. If you do want to go into beta, you can do that right now and you can play around with this stuff on your site. You can see up here, it's the same address that you go to, but in the front of it, it has beta here. And then you should be able to log in like you do for your normal site. Just be really careful that you realize you're working on beta here. Excuse me. You're working on beta. Anything you do here is obviously not going to be on your live site. So you just want to make sure to keep track of that. So yeah, I'll demonstrate these a little bit. You can go play with these on beta, and then next week you can actually have these available on your live site. And as you can see here, I have some skylight panels. And then if I flip this around, I do have some Eave Light clear panels as well. And I'm going to go and show you how I set these up. Um, just wanted to demonstrate, show you those while we're in here. The other thing I wanted to do in the job that we'll take a look at how I set this up is related to the output. So I'm going to go into the outputs and I'm just going to do a wall layout here real quick for this job. Um, so I'll hit download. It's going to go produce that wall layout. So we made a couple changes here on the layouts that I just wanted to point out. And the thing that I wanted to point out here is that I have some information coming in here. This is actually, I'm going to share this tab. I like to not share that with everyone. So here we have the wall layout. This is the typical information that we've provided in the past. This is job name, the date, and the time. And I just realized I kind of doubled this up, but this again is the project name. This here is a customer name, and this is the loading for this job. So on the left side here, that information can be customized by you now. And I'll show you how to do this in a second, but where those are coming from, I'm going to go back to this job. I'm going to go over to the job tab, and you'll see that this is the project name, that is that customer name, and this is the loading. And so I went in and customized that particular wall layout to have this information show up there on the left side. And I didn't have my logo in there, but you can get your logo to come in there. Yeah. So I think here in the job, I just wanted to do an intro and show this and show that output. And at this point, I'm going to jump into the settings so we can dig into this a little bit. So you saw those clear panels, you saw the colors and the panels that came in there. The way that you need to set this up to get those clear colors, it is a color. We have this set up so you can apply a color to a panel. and you can now have transparency as part of that color. So the first thing you want to do is add a color for this. And I added in just two here, this bronze clear and then just clear. And if we go in and edit this, this is the color code, just like we've set up the other colors. And then the new thing we have here is this color transparency. And so 0 is going to be solid. It's just like it is for all the other colors, but you can go up to 100% clear. I did 70% in this case. And actually, this clear panel here, that one wasn't quite as clear as I wanted it to be. So I'm going to change this to 85%. We'll see how that looks. You might have to mess around with these a little bit to get something that works for you, but you can come in here, you can create a new color, um, and then you can define this color and you can define the transparency. And you can do that for any colors. If you have these already existing, you could change those up, just go and edit those, or you can add brand new ones. Um, yeah, and I could have gone into the setup wizard here as well. So I'm gonna go into the setup wizard, and you can get into the colors here, and same kind of thing here. And you can put in that color transparency here and do some of the work here. You can also apply them to systems if you want to do that. So first thing you want to do is the colors. And then if we get into the actual clear panel material itself, those are going to fall into the sheathing category. So I have some other sheathing materials in here, and then you can kind of hijack some of these other materials if you want. Um, you could add clear panels to your other materials that already exist. The thing you're going to run into there is, and you could add your clear colors as options to any of your existing panels. But what you're going to run into is if you go to set up like an Eave Light, you're going to have options of all the different colors and then probably some that you have that are clear panels. So you can kind of just add these onto your existing panels, but probably what you want to do is I added a brand new material here, and I just did kind of a generic material clear panel. Just like any other sheathing material, I added this in as clear panel. You know, whatever you do, you probably have more specific types of materials and panels that you use, and you may have more than one of these. You can have as many as you want, but I just set up this clear panel as a lineal footage item. It's going to have colors, and it has the same coverage width. In this case, I was kind of matching this up as a corrugated look to it. But so it has the same width of these other panels, and that is going to be important. The widths of these do need to match up with whatever you're using for your roof or your wall. Um, and so I set up the coverage width, the full width, the thickness. This is just like the other sheathing materials. One area that I think we're going to have some work, and we'd really appreciate your feedback on this, is some of the overlapping that happens. Right now, we'll get into the job and we'll get into some more of the details of how these get laid out. Um, but the only thing that we have here to give you a little bit of room to play with, these are going to fall on the purlins. But then if you want some kind of extra material, this extension is what is going to give you some additional material here. And this will make a little bit more sense when we get into the job. But if we had a 2 foot panel or purlin spacing, and we put a panel and it ended up being 2 foot right on the purlins, it's going to give me 2 foot 2 inch cut length for that panel because I have this 2 foot extension. And it doesn't know if that's happening at the top or the bottom really, and it's not going to show it in the 3D model right now. It's just going to add that additional length onto the cut length for that panel. and then it's going to, use that in order to, in my case, I have a couple different panel lengths, I think 3 foot and like 11 foot for these panels. And it's going to figure that as it tries to consolidate those into a panel that it's going to put onto the material list. So this is kind of like a margin. This is where you can kind of get some additional length for these beyond what the purlins are going to dictate. But I think we probably need to get more specific with those in terms of how far maybe at the top it's extending and how far on the bottom. We probably want to get those into the 3D model. I know we have some work to do here, so we'll take a closer look at this, but that's an area that we're requesting some feedback. The rest of this, the only thing maybe here is this corrugated. You can put in the different bump maps or the looks of these in the 3D model. So you'll see that that has a corrugated look once we get into that. The other thing that you can do with these is we do have usages specific to skylights and to Eave lights. And so for this specific clear panel material, I'm applying these to be used for both skylights and Eave lights and none of the other stuff. That way, when I go to put in a skylight or an Eve light, I'm just going to be looking at this material and just also, if we go down here, these colors, which this is going to be that bronze clear just in one length, and then I have the clear in a couple different lengths here. So you can set these up the way you like. You can have more of these, but basically you can get your pricing, your part lengths, get your colors, get them set up specific to skylight, Eve lights, get your widths, um, and then you want to save those. And you can do as many of those as you want. And yeah, so that is the material of setting these up. This should mostly take care of anything in the framing rules. This is going to, when you go to the skylight and the Eve light, we'll see that. I'm going to have the option of this material here and these colors. You could go into the framing rules. I'm not going to do that right now, but you could go in the framing rules and set up some defaults if you want a default material to show up for your clear panels. So another thing just to think about there, you might need to go into your framing rules and set up some defaults. But the high level process here is you set up those colors, get some transparency, then you can come in here, you can set up one or more of these clear panel sheathing materials and get those all set up. And then once you just save all those, they will be available for you to use. So that is the setup for the Eve Light and Skylight. We do have a more detailed document. We do record this webinar, by the way, and we will have this available. So when the time comes for you to get this set up, you can refer to this. And you can also, of course, utilize our support to help you get this set up. One thing I'll do here, changing gears a little bit, and let's see, I think I'm using this G-rib material. This is going to come into play with something that I'll show you once we get back into the model, and that is automatically adding some purlins at a splice in the roof panel. So if you have a maximum length for your roof panel, in this case, I just did 10 feet. Be careful with this. This is inches. It's pretty easy to just kind of cruise through this and put in like 10 feet, and then you'll actually get 10 inches and you'll get a bunch of little panels. But the maximum length in this case for this one I put in here is 10 foot to demonstrate this. And that means on a roof, if it extends, if the length of that roof, if the panel is going to be more than 10 foot, it's going to cut that panel off at 10 foot, and that's going to continue another panel. That is available right now, but what we've done here is we've made it to where it can automatically put in a purlin splice. So when we get into the job, you'll see that this panel is split at 10 foot, and there's going to be a purlin row of purlins running across there. So while we were in here, I wanted to point that one out.
Whole time.
Other thing here on the settings that I'll point out is going into these outputs. And like I showed you with that wall layout, if I open this up and edit this, and you can add these as well if you do it, you can do a brand new one, is those that information that was coming from that job tab, I put in here with these tokens. So very similar to the document templates, you can add in tokens for those header lines. And let's see, I do still have this open. Maybe I'll just refresh here real quick and I'll make sure to share this. Uh, Not that one. Oh, never mind. It kind of kicked me out of there. So anyway, those tokens came in. I put these in here. The way that I got these tokens, if you do go into the document template, and maybe I'll just show this real quick. I tend to show this almost every time, but if you go into the document template,
We're not seeing anything,
Hey,
Sean.
Sean.
oh, yeah, it kicked me out of there. I apologize for that. Let me go back here and share. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I opened up just a document template to add a document template here, selected that from the list. And when you do that, you can come here and click here to download a list of all the different tokens. And then what I did is once you download that, you just open it up and it'll give you those tokens. So I'll just open that up real quick. So I'll share this tab and you can just grab these and just, copy. And then you can come back over and then I'll share this tab again. And once you have that document template downloaded and open, you can just go and copy and paste those. And I'll go back to the wall layout. And then here's these 3 header lines, and you can just come in here and paste those tokens. So I had that project name, which is probably redundant, customer name, and then I did grab the loading. And so it showed that project name, it showed the customer name, showed the loading when we opened up that job. So these are just going to fill in these blanks for the job specific information coming from your job tab. And I didn't include the logo, but you can include that. And you can do a PDF or you can do a CAD file if you want. And so you can do that for a lot of these drawings. I think really almost all of these construction type drawings, the layouts, the drawings, cross sections. So if I open up the post layout, same kind of thing is going on here. Even the elevations. So all of these kind of PDF outputs, you can set those up to have that customized information coming from your job tab. The one other thing that I wanted to point out here is that we had a request to make this roof report consistent with the other drawings. And so we did do that. You'll see that if you don't put in these header lines, you're going to get what you got before. And that was kind of our standard information showing up there on the left. Now, if you put in these header lines, you're going to get those on the left at the top corner header. And then on the right, you're going to get our standard information. And so we've made all of these layouts and construction drawings, including the roof report, consistent. So thanks, Megan, for suggesting that. So we kind of cleaned some of that up, and then we gave you those job tokens in those header lines for some more customization. And I think that's going to be it here in the settings. So definitely a little bit of settings work required. I'm going to hit home, and then I'm going to go back and edit this job. It's going to take a second here to load up this job and load up the 3D model, load up all the pricing, and we'll get into a couple different things here. One thing I'll just show real quick is with that purlin splicing for the panels. And okay, there we go. There's kind of a strange purlin line running across here, and that is from that panel length. So there is just a new checkbox here. If you go into the details, this is optional. This isn't going to affect you if you don't want to use this. If you're doing longer lengths or if you're doing like commercial kind of roofs, then you might want to come in here and it's just this checkbox here, add purlins, add sheathing laps. So it's reaching that maximum length on that panel, and then it's just going to throw in a row of purlins based on how you have your purlin set up. Um, if you turn that off, it's just going to get rid of that. And if you don't use this or don't care about this, it's not going to affect you. You don't have to worry about it. But you might want to go into your framing rules and set this up as a default if that's something that you do run into. So just point that out real quick. I think the other part that I want to touch on real quick, and before we get into the clear panels, because there's quite a bit to talk about there, is just pointing out a couple things that we did with sliders that I think is a smaller subset of customers, but it might be stuff that you want to use. So I do want to point out real quick, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but a couple things here. One is we have a slider track margin. So if you get this close to the corner, we do have the ability now to kind of hold this back. As you can see, it's a little bit longer opening this up over this way than it is going to be this way. And maybe you're okay with that. And instead of extending this out or trying to figure it out, we've given you some control over the distance that you can put here. And so this is going to be under the slider door, or I think it's under the panel trim. So a lot more settings for you, quite a few settings. So that is this distance here. It's called the exterior corner buffer length. And so it's just holding this back. That's 6 inches here. If I get rid of this, it's going to just extend that out, is the way that we do this now. But if you do put in any sort of a distance here, if you do 1 inch, it's going to hold that back 1 inch. And you can see that's going to affect the track cover as well as the track board and some of the other framing involved with that. So it pulled all that back. So if you run into that situation, that's something that you have some control over at this point. The other thing that we did here is you can see that I have 2 different materials here for this track board here. And so that is an additional setting that you can define if you want to have different materials at this location. So this is going to be under the slider door post framing. And if we come down here to track board, I have a 2x4 here, and then we have a track board extension. As you can see, is a pressure treated 2x8. Now we do have these 2 different materials here that you can set up, and they have the lengths associated with them. So if you do have different materials here, you can set this up to automatically put in those different materials. So that's just a request that we had. The other thing, it's kind of similar here, that's still going to be underneath the slider door post framing settings, is going to be the skirt board changes. And as you can see, this is at the rub rail specifically, where I have a different skirt board where the rub rail is at. Though it is running all the way to the next support here. So I have a pressure treated 2x8 at the rub rail at this point. And then for the rest of this, I have like a 2x6 rub rail. All right, excuse me, skirt board for the rest of the building. So if you want to have a different skirt board at your rub rail for the support of some of the mechanics there, you do have that option now. And these are things that you can go into your framing rules and kind of set up some defaults. Okay, last thing here on this is there is a rub rail sheathing offset. If you raise up the bottom of your panel at your rub rail, you can do that. So if we put in a distance here, then at the rub rail, it's going to pull up the bottom of that sheathing. So you can kind of see that it pulled that up over to the top of that rub rail. So that's another option there. If that's something that you do, you can set that up as your default, and that can kind of automatically raise up the bottom of the panels at the rub rail. And then you can see we have that board sticking out. You can turn those off. So I'll turn that off. We can see a little bit better here. Okay, so those are the slider things. I don't want to spend too much time there. If you are interested in those, give us a call at support, and we can talk you through that. Okay, so let's get into the clear panels here. And we'll start with the eaves. So there's a couple rules here. And so this is, again, another area to get some feedback on, but we put both of these underneath the clear panels. So we have the Eave Light and the Skylight. And the way that you input these is you click on whichever one you want to put in this case will be the Eave Light, and you'll see you get a note that you need to click on a wall to put these in. A little bit different than what we've done on like the attached buildings. And also with the upper sheathing and the wainscot, it's a little bit different. You'll have to put these in as individual walls. And so that's something that, an area where we can get some feedback, we can make some changes. But the way that this works now is you do click on a wall. And once you click on that wall, you'll get these input parameters, and you see you get some sort of a preview. So right now on this gable wall, the defaults, it's looking at this offset down, and it is coming down 1 foot from that peak. Doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense for the gables, but and you can see when I put that as 8, it's going to drop that down 8 foot. The height is going to be this length of the panel here from the top, where we've offset it down from, to the bottom of this panel. So right now it's 1 foot. If we do 2 foot, it's going to turn into 2 foot. 3 foot, you're going to get a 3 foot panel, which is what I've done here. Let's see, what would be the math on that? I guess I'm not really going to try to match these up right now. I brought that down below the truss carrier. And as you can see, I have that one material here of clear panel. That is that material that we looked at in the setup wizard that I set up for specifically for the Eave Lights and the Skylights in this case. So you could have separate Eave Light and Skylight materials if you wanted, or you can choose none. And then those colors are showing up here, that bronze and that clear. And I might have messed up my clear panel, but we'll take a look. Maybe I'll place this one. So I'll just place this one as kind of inputting these, and then I'll show you how to edit these other ones. So that one put in there, and it looks like that panel is not coming in. I don't think that's because of that transparency. I guess I probably didn't save my setup wizard there. So I might have kind of messed that up, but we could go back and fix that. In order to edit these, you can go to the Edit 3D, and you'll see you get that as an option. There's going to be some situations on the roofs, mainly, I believe, where if you get into like a porch that has skylights, in this Edit 3D can get confused, or where you have a couple different things that could be selected. Like you could select that porch, or you could select the skylight. You can also go into, if I click on Eave Light here again, I can't just select this existing one to get into the edits. So you can either go to Edit 3D, or you can go into a specific uh, Eave Light or Skylight to select those. And that comes in handy like on the porch where you have the skylights and you need to select that specifically. Something to keep in mind. So when I hit edit on that, it does pull up the same input screen, and we can make changes here to this existing one. And so we have this full width checkbox, and that means it is just going to put it all the way across. That's what I did on that gable wall, but you can uncheck that, and then you can start to um, play around with where these get placed. And there are some rules. So you'll see here, I have this starting at 8 is kind of the default, and we do get this preview. And the thing about these starts um, is that they're going to be based on panels. And so you cannot put an Eave Light or a skylight. Actually, that is going to be like in the middle of a panel. So it's following the panel breaks across the wall. And so if I put in something like 9, um, it will bump me over in this case. If I put in like 1, it's going to put me all the way to the end of the wall because that's where the panel break is. A one there, wouldn't let me put it at 1 foot because it'd be in the middle of a panel. If I put in 2, it's also not going to do anything. And because we're getting to the 3-foot panel width, that's where these panel widths become important. And now I do have a panel that's starting 3 foot from the end, right at this panel break here. The width is going to do something similar here. I have 8 foot that's coming across 8 foot. If we put in like 9 foot, it's not going to do anything again because it's going to want to fall onto a panel break. So if I put in 12 foot, it is going to let me put that break there. So you get these previews. The offset down here is from the top of the wall, works very similar to the porches. And so you can really put that wherever you want, including 0. And then again, this height is the length here. And we did, okay, yeah, we changed this to the height. So that's going to be like the height of this panel. And we've debated about what to call this. If you have suggestions on this, let us know. We're calling it height right now, but this is going to be the length of this clear panel here, from where the offset down starts down 3 foot to here. So that's where that length is coming from. And again, we have the material and the color. So if I do hit apply, it's going to take this away from the full length. And then we just get a little skylight here, or a little Eave Light. For skylights, similar thing. You do have to click on a roof panel, and these are individual roof panels. If I click on that one, this gets more into purlins as well as the panel widths. On the walls right now, we are not limiting you in terms of where the girts are. That might be something we want to change. That's a place for feedback. Up here on the roofs, you are going to be limited by the purlins. And so I have this offset down of 3 foot. Again, this is something that you may not see changes here. I changed that to 2. The preview didn't change. I have 5 foot purlin spacing, I believe here. So, and I have kind of an offset from the ridge. So it's looking at those purlins and it's going to kind of lock you into those. So some things are just not going to change. Even if we do, I think like 4 foot, okay, that is going to get me into a purlin. The height of these, again, this is kind of the height from the offset down to the bottom of this panel. If I put in 5 foot, we will see a change there. I think if we put in 4 foot, it's going to bump us back probably to this 3 foot length. So these are going to be dictated by panel or by the purlins and the purlin layout. And also by where these panel breaks are. So let's see, if I start this at 0, it's going to kind of bump me over here to get into the into that left edge of a panel. And then again, we have the materials, we have the colors that we could change. The quantity here you'll see is 3. We have 3 of these. If you put in 5, you're going to get 5. If you put in 55, it's going to take you as far as it can. Um, and then the skip factor here is really a panel width. So you can see that this is just like it's skipping one panel and then putting in um, another skylight and bumping those. If you do 2, it's going to give you 2 panels and put them in. So you get this nice preview, and so you can see what's happening. There are rules associated with these, but the good news is you can kind of come in here, play around with these things, and get it to look the way that you want. And then once you get where you want it to be, you can hit apply, and it will place those onto the panels, onto the roof. Um, and then again, you can come in here and edit these either by 3D, and you do have to edit these as a group. That's just the way it works. If you click on this one, you're going to be editing all of these. So that's another area where you could potentially make some changes if you do need individual changes for these panels. We really don't have a way to do that right now. These all work as a group. You can put in multiple groups of these on a roof if you need to. You can, so you don't have to just put in one group if you do want to do some different things here. So that would just end up being one or more groups of these panels with some different settings associated with them. In this case, because I messed up my clear panels, I think we could go back and fix those. But if you do want to delete these, you edit them, and there's a delete skylight here, and then I'll just ask you to delete those.
So, Sean, we did have a couple of questions that came up with respect to these skylights.
Okay.
Um, so, Marlon asked, does anyone think it would be beneficial to add a control to easily line up the clear panels with other walls? And I think what he's talking about is the issue you had trying to put the clear panel on the gable wall that lined up with the one on the Eave wall.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's because we're offset from top.
Right.
And Marlon said matching the height on different walls. Um, Chris suggested having an offset from grade option would be best instead of offset down, having offset from grade.
Yeah.
We did offset down because our looking at the buildings that we saw, what we saw was that the eave lights tended to be up towards the eave, and they were some distance down. And it didn't seem like, from what we were looking at, obviously we couldn't tell, but it didn't seem like anyone was saying, "Oh, I want these to be, 12 feet from grade." No, they wanted it to be 1 foot down from the top. That's where the eave light starts, and it's 2 feet high. But having said that, we don't do this. You guys do. So we like Keith said, we are very much driven by what you guys need. And so,
That'd be a nice
is
option
there,
from grade.
yeah, well, is it an option, or is it, no, change it from offset down to offset from grade?
Well, I mean, it seems like it's, the end walls versus the side walls, little bit different. I think the offset down is nice for the sidewall. For the gable, it's a little more difficult to work with. That's just my theory. So
Yeah, I mean, what we saw in looking at a bunch of pictures was that nobody ever put an eave light on a gable wall. They put them on the eave walls. And so there wasn't an issue with trying to get them to line up as they wrapped around the corner. Someone said, "Hey, if we changed it so that on a gable wall it was offset down was from the same height as offset down was on the eave wall."
Mm-hmm.
And so just figure it out so that it's the same. When you say offset down 1'4" on the eave wall and the gable wall, you get it at the same place. Can we have the offset measurement start from the top of the wall steel versus the eave?
What was that
Example
one?
on a building with overhangs, have it start at top of wall trim. I'm not sure where it starts now, but I think it starts at the top of it. It is offset down from the top of the wall trim. Then they would all match. Can you set the offset down to be from the eave height instead of the peak? I think that's kind of what had been proposed. Bart says, can we have both offset down and from grade? No, pick one. Of course, you can have both if that's what we need. If the prevailing sentiment is that no, if it was always offset from grade, then we would change it to that. If the prevailing was no, it's always going to be offset from eave, but it's the same eave all the way around the building. Irvin says they typically set the position of the wall lights based on wall girts. So this is.
So it's 10 square foot in a block of stone flat. Is that right?
Yeah, so just like attached building have the choice of height or offset. I don't like giving you guys choices.
So I think the offset from top of wall would be the best option because it's something that you could set as a standard and you're not having to set it per job, the height. You have a building
that was
height.
Yeah, that's why we went with offset down, because it just seemed like from all the pictures that we saw, the Eave Light is always some slight distance down from the top of the wall metal. And so
I think that makes sense. If we could just set that on the gable on the offset down to come from the short point of the gable or from some matching eave wall height.
Yeah, it seems like number one, when you have an overhang, it should be offset down from the top of the steel, and it doesn't look like it is. Is that right, Sean?
Right. Well,
Yeah.
no, it is from the top of the steel.
Well, it is, and if you edit that Eave Light and you set the offset down, what is the offset down on that Eave Light? It's 1 foot, right? It's
0. I said
it's offset down 0.
Yeah.
Set the offset down to 1 foot, and maybe we were smarter than we thought. That does not look like 1 foot, but it's hard to tell. Yeah, S5 is just 5 inches, so it's not 1 foot. It's 1 foot from the ceiling height or the top of wall, the eave height, whatever we want to call that number. But it sounds like the consensus is no, it's from the top of the steel. Oh. Yeah. And Irvin is going back to the first girt down from the ceiling height for the top of the side light is our preferred position. Yeah, if you do an offset of 0, if you do an offset down of 0, it should put the top of this eave light at the bottom of the overhang or the top of the eave if you don't have overhangs.
I would definitely like to see it at the top of the wall sheeting because So we typically put it at the top of the wall sheeting, and if we have that set at 0, then we put a 3-foot panel in. It's going to give us a 3-foot panel. Um,
At the top of
Otherwise,
the wall, yeah.
with a different fascia height or anything like that, it's gonna change that offset. So I think top of the wall sheeting would be the target.
Top of wall sheathing, yeah.
Yeah, top of wall sheathing. Where that gets a little bit funny is if you do that then and you have an overhang on one side and no overhang on the other side, you're going to have the wall light in a different place. So that sort of breaks the idea of do it from a consistent place.
Where is this coming from? I mean, I expected this to be at the top of the steel. Where is that 0 from? Looks like something we probably have to look at.
We'd have to look at it. It's
This is beta.
yeah. This is why it's in beta, right? It's not the top of the truss carrier. It's about
No, it's not
half
the
half
ceiling.
a yeah. It's not the ceiling, so I'm not sure where it is.
Yeah, that looks kind of like a bug.
Yeah, so that we would want to be consistent, and then you'd want to be consistent on the eave wall with that. Um, yeah, the tricky part is if you had an overhang on one side of the building and not on the other side of the building. On this side of the building, your offset down 0 would put you there. On the other side of the building, offset down 0 would put you down by whatever your soffit, wherever your soffit return is. And then on the gable side, which side should it match? Yeah.
Well, something to think about.
So like Irvin said, offset from grade would work the best for him. That's what I've been doing with upper wall sheeting is offset from grade, and
Mhm.
then I can place it at my first skirt below the truss carrier.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kind of like the idea of having both. Mark, it sounds like you don't like that, but
Well, yes and no. They both have problems, right? Offset from grade it's really simple. It's just it just means that for every wall that you put in on every single building, you have to scratch your head and go, okay, what do I want the offset from grade to be for this one? Right? So on this, again, when you have an overhang on one side and not on the other, is really where it rears its ugly head. Or a 1-foot overhang on one side and a 2-foot overhang on the other side. Now your if you want it to be right up at the top of the steel, that means you have to calculate where the top of the steel is going to be. And so you would want to be able to say, no, offset down 0, period. I want it offset down 0, always to be offset down 0. And that offset down is always from the top of the steel, which basically means you could put offset down 0 and you're going to get it up as high as it can go. You're not going to have regular wall sheathing above your Eave Light.
yeah, but you could still do that. I mean, why couldn't you do that?
If you have offset down 0, because offset down 0 means there's nothing above, nothing above it. It's right up at the top.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay. So it looks like we have a fix to the offset down 0. We think about offset from grade as an option. It sounds like the Gerts we get involved. And maybe we don't need offset from grade if we make it easier to match it up with the girts.
We're doing that with the purlins on the skylight. We're forcing them to the purlins. So here it kind of makes sense to do the same thing.
Potentially, yeah. Maybe it's an option.
Well, we chose not to do the type of wainscot girt or upper sheathing girt. We just chose not to include it in this release, but we talked about putting in a separate girt for placing the skylights exactly where you want them and not being forced to the next girt.
Right. Yeah, so that's an area for some feedback.
Yeah, and we've gotten feedback. Urban, for instance, says no. The first girt down from the ceiling height for the top of the side light, that's where they put it. So the first girt down from the truss carrier, that's where they want the top of their side light to be. And so that drop dimension that we were seeing in the pictures is not come down 1'6". It's come down to the top of the uppermost girt on the wall. And so that would be, if we're talking about giving them options, there'd be options of offset down, which would be down from the top of steel. I think we can all agree that down offset. If you use offset down, you're wanting it to come down that far from the top of the steel, wherever that is.
Yeah.
Second option would be offset from grade, which is from the grade come up 9'6", and that's where the top of the skylight is, or the Eave Light is. And then the third option would be
first skirt down.
Yeah, right. First skirt. First girt, second girt, third girt.
Yeah, I don't know.
Align with girt.
Yeah.
And and then you just specify, which girt is it.
And then we might have something with the gable. Or maybe that just falls under the offset from grade, or maybe something match eave wall.
Yeah, then it gets a little bit fuzzy, because if your eave wall is top of metal, and the top of metal is different from the left eave wall and the right eave wall, which eave wall do we match?
Yeah. Okay, I guess we're getting into a design session here, which
Yes.
it's fine. I mean, I was done with what I was going through, so this is kind of the official time of anybody wants to jump in or whatever you guys want to talk about. We can definitely keep talking about these. Maybe you should do a session and just invite people and go through some of these kind of things.
So we've got Irvin saying they always line it up with the girts, and Casey saying it'd be nice to not be a pigeonhole to line up with the girts.
Yeah.
So we've got people voting for both. So it sounds like if we had those three options for Eave Lights, the offset down, like we have now, but making it work correctly, so it's always offset down from the top of the steel. And then offset from grade. So 9'6", you want a 9'6" all the way around the building. Now you can make it consistent, 9'6" all the way around the building. And then the third option would be for the way Irvin does it, I'm sure other people as well, would be to say, no, I want it to line up. I want the top to line up with the first girt or the second girt from the top. Yeah. Then you'd have those three options and you'd be able to do it. I like that
there-
idea.
There's one more thing that I think has been discussed but not on here is the trim at the
Yeah.
Eave lights. So
Yes. So
some
Delmar
people
asked
don't
about
use
that.
trim. Oh, they did. I didn't see it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Delmar asked, what are the options for the trim? Right now, for the trim, I believe that we are currently using wainscot trim, correct? On both the top and bottom.
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
So if you don't have wainscot on a wall, then you do have some control over that. But do we need an Eave Light trim? Do we need a upper and lower Eave Light trim?
Yeah, I think we do. I mean, the problem, if you do have Scott on this wall and you want trim, but you also have Eve lights, and if you don't want trim, I think maybe some people don't use trim here. You can't, like, it's just automatically going to match your wainscot trim. You can't have no trim up here and then wainscot trim. So right now, if you have wainscot, you have to have wainscot trim up here, and are limited to matching the wainscot trim. So
Right. So
yeah,
is
this
it
is a follow-up
is it
task.
reasonable to assume that you're going to use the same trim for the Eve lights for both the top and bottom of the Eve light as you use for the wainscot?
I think in some cases, but I mean, I think
Well,
some,
I'm asking the people that actually build buildings.
I mean, some people don't use trim at all on the Eve lights, I believe. I mean, anybody can chime in, but you do want to
Yeah,
use the
Brandon said I just use the same. I would keep the trim the same as whatever you're using for the wainscot. A long time ago, a lot of guys would sheet the entire truss area with Eve light panels on the gable, especially in a horse barn. Um,
I was just starting to answer that. What we do is you can take that sheeting, that clear sheeting, put it into your material colors, and then for your upper sheeting, that would be your material that you use. Upper sheeting color is clear, so you could get that effect.
yes, you can get that effect by just doing upper sheathing,
Yeah.
and just change your upper sheathing color. Well, change your upper material, but
Yeah, I have those colors with these other panels, I think.
yeah. So this, I think, gives you that would give you
What you
what you asked for there. And really, realistically, for Eve lights, if your Eve lights are always at the top of the metal and you
Hmm.
want offset from grade, then I think upper sheathing height does give you that capability. It looks like.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You could use that color for any of your panels as long as you're in the right system, you have the material set up and you have the color set up, right? So you would have to make sure that system that you're using, whether it's G-Rib or whatever, has a clear panel that you can buy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so that's what they have there. One of the questions from Delmar is, what trim do we use on that upper sheathing? And I don't know that we have an upper sheathing trim, do we?
I think it's again the wainscot.
Yeah, I think we do the wainscot.
I think we do the wainscot trim there. Um,
No.
well, we call it upper sheathing trim, but what are we actually putting in there? Do we have a setting for it? So go to details.
It is controlled by the wainscot trim.
Yeah. We just call it upper sheathing.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So, I mean, is that a vote for a separate setting for upper sheathing trim, separate from wainscot trim?
Yes. And the reason I say that, if we have, just example, if we have a building with three colors, like a wainscot is one color, then your sheeting and your wall trims are a different color, you have the ability to set that sheeting trim, set the upper sheeting trim to match the wall instead of the wainscot color.
Who cares?
Actually,
That's
actually, no, we can't. We can actually. Well, no, because when I select that wall and change the wainscot trim to match either the wainscot or the wall or whatever, I think it needs to be controlled separately.
okay. So that's a vote for separate settings for wainscot trim and upper sheathing trim.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is, as far as offset from grade, we have a solution for that, and that is, hey, just use upper sheathing. You can select your clear panels as your upper sheathing panels, and that would allow you to get this effect. Now, if you wanted that upper sheathing band to go the same 3 foot height or whatever that is around the eave wall, you couldn't use upper sheathing to do that.
Around the gable.
Around the gable, yeah, you would have to calculate what the correct drop height is. Not sure that comes up often enough to spend too much time on it. I think what we need to do is make sure that that when you say offset down 0, it actually does offset down 0, and not give you this kind of mess. This is giving you both, but and then it sounds like we also need a separate option for upper sheathing trim, like wainscot trim, and another one for Eave Light trim. And would it be the same trim on the top and bottom of the Eave Light, assuming that it wasn't all the way to the top?
I would say so.
Yeah. Brandon said just leave use the same trim that you use for wainscot. Um, and that kind of sort of works, but not really, particularly when you have stone wainscot. And yes, I think we can get this much better. I don't think that we're going to answer all of these questions, but I think we can get it to where it's going to work for 90% of the cases that people want to be able to use it. And the other cases, they might have to scribble on a napkin or something to get the right stuff.
The only thing I would add is on the Eave Light, if we have a 80-foot long building, we have a 20-foot door in the middle of the wall, and that upper wall is full of header. It would be nice to be able to cluster the Eave Light similar to what you're doing on the roof, to say, to be able to apply 2 groups of Eave Light instead of a solid band. So
You can,
we have a
you can,
group of Eave
yeah,
Light on the left of the door and on the right, and not in the doorway.
yeah, we don't have that ability, but you can add 2 skylight or 2 Eve lights on a wall. You say 8-foot Eve light on this side of the building, and then a start point, and then an 8-foot Eve light on the other end of the building. So your
Yeah,
start point.
Full width check box.
Start
That's
at
what I
0
meant.
for 8 feet, and then another Eave Light start at
Perfect.
16 for 8
Oh,
feet.
you got it. I missed the checkbox.
Yeah, yeah. You just have to do it as 2 separate ones. You can also put
Yeah.
an Eave Light at at offset down 1 foot and then 3 foot high, and then another Eave Light offset down 8 foot that's 3 feet high. So you can do some really silly things with your Eave lights. But they are
But
multiples that way.
yeah, but remember, you're not going to be able to get things exact. It's going to be based on your panel widths. Just so you know, I want it 8 foot here. Oh, it's not 8 foot. It's hanging over the door here. So you'll have to do some playing around based on your panel
Sure.
widths.
Yeah, because basically it does. When you say I want an Eave light from here to here, what it does is say, all right, so starting here and ending here, you're going to be able to see through the panel. Now, how many where do I start? Where's the first panel that has to be made clear, and where's the last panel that has to be made clear? Because what it does is it just makes the panels clear. So when you go to the drawings is where you can see it. If you go to the sheathing drawing for EXT1, EXT3, then you can see what it did is said, all right, well, S38 or S12 is what it was. S12 got broken into S12 and S30, and then S38 is the section, the 3 foot section or 11 foot section in the middle.
The 11 foot is his length of
it's
that
his
panel.
maximum length. Yeah, the panel length.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just so we know.
With that 3 foot section, yeah, the 3 foot section in the middle, it's cutting it out of an 11 footer. 4'2". Yeah, so it was 4 foot was the height, and then you had the 2-inch extension. So
Yeah.
yeah, so 4'2", 4'2", cutting those out of there. But yeah, back on the drawing, the dimensions you gave it were actually somewhere in the middle of S38 and somewhere in the middle of S38 to somewhere in the middle of S40. That's where you said you wanted your Eave light to be start and stop.
Mm-hmm.
So somewhere in there is where you requested. This is what you got.
Yeah.
So hopefully that will help. Let's see. We had a question from Benjamin Oikel, changing the markup on starting models. I would reach out to support on that one, Benjamin. That's not really an issue that I want to talk about here, but support will definitely be happy to help you with that kind of question. Chad asked about anyone having issues using the camp porch detail and then placing windows. We did have some issues with that we have addressed in this sprint. We didn't, as usual, we don't always talk about bugs that we fixed in a particular sprint, but we did fix some issues, some bugs with this sprint as well. And some of them had to do with the placement of windows. So I would encourage you to, if you're having issues when doing those kinds of things, reach out to support and let them know what that is. And that dramatically increases the likelihood that they will get fixed if we know that they're a problem. Let's see. Yeah, so I think we've exhausted that stuff. And for Eave lights, we are going to make one change at least, which is to ensure that when you say offset down 0, it actually is offset down 0, whether you have an overhang or not.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like it's not. So
Yep.
we'll have to get that figured out. And then we do have a request for we have half of a request for a Eave light trim. We had several people say, just use the same thing you use for wainscot. And so I think in the interest of getting this thing out, we will continue to use the same trim that we use for wainscot. both the Eave lights and also for the top of, or for the upper sheathing trim. But we do have a vote for additional trim types for both of those
Mm-hmm.
in a future release.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Irvin, first girt down from ceiling height for the top of side light. I think the best way to address that is to just know that hey, you got 3 foot girt spacing, so the offset, then it's offset down is yuck. Irvin, I don't really have a good solution for that particular issue other than, like I said, pull out a napkin and do some calculations to get it in there. But adding an option for the Eave lights to be able to say, no, honor the girts. And it's more than just do it at the the first girt down. It is things like, well, if I have 3 foot girt spacing and I say I want an Eave light that's 2 foot high, then that means either it's going to be 3 foot high, so it runs down to the next girt, or it's going to be 2 foot high, and you're going to have an extra girt placed in there, kind of like we do for a wainscot girt. So there's some more discussion and grooming we need to have about that, and figure out what we need to do about that. And really, a lot feedback from customers is what we have to rely on there. Oh, here's a question we can answer. Kyle Hahn asked, is there a way to add more accent colors and be able to name them?
There is.
We already do. We have 4 accent colors.
You cannot.
Is he saying?
You only get
Well,
4.
You only get 4, but you can name them.
You can name them, yeah.
So if you go to, you want to show them how to do that, Sean?
Sure. Because I'll save. So let's see here. Is that
Framing rules.
Mm-hmm.
So go into your framing rules and once it loads, you can go down to colors.
Colors. Hit the E.
Hit the E for edit. And I think he said walk door trim.
Okay.
And click save. And then what you probably do while you're in here is go to door and window, go to walk door, and walk door trim, and set that header color from trim color to walk door trim.
There it is.
And then trimmer color to walk door trim and top jam color to walk door trim. But basically set them all to walk door trim.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you were talking about, Kyle? Kyle's not answering us. Oh, Kyle says, hey, nice. Any chance to get more one day? Maybe up to 10? No, you can't. You got 4.
Well, we could do.
Everyone knows there are only 8 colors. There's roof, wall, wainscot, accent 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 7. That's all you need. Oh, upper sheathing color. So yeah, that's 8. Yes, we could add more than 4. 10 is 10 gonna be enough? Where does it end? I'm curious why you would need more than 4. I can't imagine what anyone would need 4 for. We added 2. We said, well, instead of 2, let's go ahead and put 4 in there because people are gonna use more than we gave them. So
So I've got an answer for that one.
okay.
Door and window colors.
Oh yeah, we don't do doors and window colors. That's a completely different thing.
Yeah,
Those
we
are
don't do that yet.
different colors. Colors in this sense is what colors of all of the trim of the paint colors that can go on your metal sheathing.
Right.
Which there is only one set of those, and I'm pretty sure that your metal supplier and your door supplier don't use the same paint, and it's not the same colors.
Right. So right now we have
So
this might be a conversation for another time, but we have the ability to set our 3D models to use our wall colors, accent colors. We can use those colors for our doors and windows if we choose to. But so what I was thinking, we can control what materials have access to what colors. So if we did put the door and window colors in the catalog and only allow the doors to use those colors or the windows, assign a color to the model, then we could set our door and window colors under the colors tab as well.
So they typically
yeah,
all just
so
go color for the whole job.
according to John Miner, there are buildings with 15 colors on one building
Yeah.
because it's whatever color the door was painted when they picked it up out of the pile. But no, you could have. Yeah, I mean, we can add more, but how many? Accent. We have accent 1 through 4. Do we need accent 1 through 10? Is that going to be enough? Or
We have the ability on the jobs tab to add questions, right? And would it be good for them to have that in the colors to be able to add whatever colors they want without us having to delineate colors 1 through 10?
no, colors are different.
Yeah, I know they're different, but
They're
that's
a
why.
different animal. Job questions don't do anything as far as we're concerned. Um, the colors definitely do. So that's the difference there. But no, it's now that we know that there is a need for up to 10. It's up to 10. Is that going to be a good start? Would that be sufficient, Chris?
Sorry, I stepped away for a little bit there, but yeah,
No, that's
I
right.
think I think so. I mean, I think 10 would be plenty for what I need. I don't know that I need that many, but
Right,
yeah, I would
but
like to have.
yeah, what would happen is you'd go into your framing rules and you'd see all these colors, and 6 or 5 through 10 are hidden because you're not using them yet. Uh, so you could unhide as many as you needed, and even name them if you wanted, and then save that in your framing rule because that's a capability that you have now. Okay, and then Chris also asked about the uh, the Eve Light. The Eve Lights do not get a GERT material yet, and this is where we were talking about with respect to what Irvin was asking about, which is, hey, I want to be able to just line the Eve Lights up with my GERTs, and so there's a whole discussion about what does that actually look like and what does that feel like, and that's where we want to get some feedback from customers to say, hey, what do you need in terms of these side lights or these Eave lights? On the skylights, the feedback that we got from the customer that actually gave us the input to request it in the first place was, no, we break it on a purlin. We always break the skylights on a purlin. So we can either always break the Eave lights on a girt, or give you an option to always break the Eave lights on a girt, or we can give you an option to always place a girt at the break in the Eave light. And so you can have your Eave light wherever you want on the wall, and we're just going to force a girt there at the top and the bottom of that Eave light. Or we can say, no, you said you wanted the Eave light about here to about here, and we just put it starting and ending on the closest girt. Two very different ways of approaching the same problem, and I'm not sure what the best answer is, but I'm hoping that with what we have, that we can really get some people using it and giving us some feedback of saying, hey, this is great. This is what I need for phase 2 of this.
Yeah.
Mark, I would see where you could kind of snap the side light to the girt, and then maybe if you have girts 2 foot on center and you want your side light to be 3 foot, where the other edge, then it would place a purlin or a girt for the edge that's not on your 2 foot girt spacing.
Yeah, see, that's the complication, Urban, that I'm concerned with is it's yeah, it seems really simple on the surface. And so I believe that what we've done is going to give you a lot of flexibility. And if we only had the ability for you to say, oh, there's a checkbox on your Eave light that said, force girts at Eave light breaks. That way, if your Eave light does start at a girt, fine. We won't put another girt there because there's already a girt there. But if it doesn't start or end on a girt, then we will put a girt there. And we would put an Eave light girt just like we put a wainscot girt.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a good option if you can do that.
Yeah, and we can certainly do that. We probably won't do that in this particular release, unless that it's going to be completely useless to everybody unless we have that complete capability in there, because we are looking at releasing this in a couple of days, early next week. So we really wouldn't have time to test all of that stuff and make sure that that's working correctly. But that is certainly something that we can think about and get queued up for the next release, because we've already identified that the some people would like the ability to use a different trim part for the Eave lights as well as for the upper sheathing trim, and it sounds like for upper sheathing we put a wainscot girt in there, don't we? At where the upper sheathing
Yes.
break is? I think
Yeah,
so.
there is.
And so we should probably, in the interest of completeness and complete flexibility, give you the ability to say, no, I want a upper sheathing girt. And you can set that to same as wainscot, or you can set it to same as girt, or you can set it to none, or you could set it to a particular material, and then give you that same flexibility for the Eave light girt. And if it defaults to none, and you get what you're getting now with this release as soon as we release it, you'll get, oh, well, there's no girt there. But then you would be able to set that to some material. And I think it makes sense to address that girt material the sheathing break girt material, right?
I
The
would agree
same
with
as
that.
all of those guys.
I think that's a good approach, Mark, because anytime you do a metal splice, you have to have a supporting girt behind it. And we've even had the requests already to have a larger type of girt used there, which I know that gets into another conversation probably, but I'm just pointing out that to specify a specific girt for a splice, I think would be a good approach.
Yeah, and it's so there's a wainscot girt, which is the girt at the splice between the wainscot material and the siding, and we also currently we use that same material at the splice between the main siding and the upper wall sheathing. And what we're proposing is, no, we're going to give you control over that. We're going to give you a new question, which is upper sheathing girt, which is going to default to same as wainscot girt. So you get the same behavior you get now. And we're going to give you another setting, which is Eave Light girt, which will default to none to give you the current behavior that you're getting. But you can change that as soon as we release it. You can change that to be, same as girt. You can change it to be, no, I want it to be a 2x8. Or I want it to be, pressure treated 2x6. So it's really hard to nail into. Whatever you need, you can do that. Really quickly, Marlon had a question. So you're saying there is currently the ability to hide the unused accent colors. And yes, there has always been the ability to hide the unused accent colors. If you go into the framing rules, you can hide any of these questions. For better or for worse, if you go into framing rules and you want to set the building width to 30 feet and then hide that question, every building is going to be 30 feet. And the users will not be able to change it. But yeah, you can hide those accent colors.
Yep.
If you don't use 2, 3, and 4, you can make them hidden.
And you do have two different levels of visibility.
And you have hidden and you have hidden advanced. I think you're using advanced, Sean, because you are seeing those colors.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
So some users can have hidden settings, and then you could have kind of a power user who might be able to see all these. So that's a permission that can be set per user.
Yeah. And if you have questions about that, again, don't feel free to reach out to support. They're more than happy to help you with those kinds of questions and walk you through it. So basically, what we're saying is for this release, we've gotten a lot of feedback on these Eave lights, and one thing that we are going to do with this release is we are going to ensure that when you say offset down 0, the top of your Eave light is at the top of the sheathing, the wall sheathing. When you say offset down 1 foot, it is 1 foot down from the top of the wall sheathing, which means that your Eave light, when you go from a 1 foot overhang to a 2 foot overhang, your Eave light is going to drop down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the only change that we're going to be making here based on this feedback. But we are going to look into adding options for the girts, basically. And one of those options is going to be when you put the Eave light in, you can specify that I want a girt material at the top and bottom of my Eave light that is either the same as the girt material, same as the wainscot girt material, a completely different girt material. If you only need 2x2 girts at the top and bottom of your eave trim, you can specify 2x2 girts and save a little bit of money. But
And
then the
similar.
other wrinkle, the other wrinkle then, is the option in the Eave Light to say match Eve location, so that it works kind of like the skylights do. When you say offset down, it's going to offset down and go to the closest girth.
Sounded like that needed to be an option, though.
It did sound like that needed to be an option, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll give those items some more thought and get those queued up for future release. I believe that you can do the things that you need to do there. It's just a little less convenient when you have to calculate numbers for every single building. But I think it's doable and it will work. So that's what we'll concentrate on getting out with this release. And very helpful. Thank you, everyone, for everyone who stuck around anyway, for all this feedback. We appreciate it.
Great. Yeah, it's nice to have something to work with, to be able to talk through these things. It makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to implement something halfway in order for people to go, that's great. Now it needs this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, good.
One more thing, Lloyd. One more thing. People have asked this before. I've had other questions about it, but clear ridgetop options. And there is a way you can set your color. If you have the color clear, you can set a material. I would call it a new material called clear ridge cap in my settings, and use that color. And then whenever you pick your ridge cap material, you would pick that color, right? So yeah, so clear ridge cap. So you can set it. I tried it while we were on here. So Lloyd, it can be done, but there are some steps involved. It's not just, it's not just as easy as this skylight thing.
Yeah, that's interesting because I've never heard anybody ask for clear ridge cap.
Yeah, it is an option out there. It is a piece of material that people have. I know I've had a few customers tell me, oh, when is that happening? And I was like, I don't know, but I've tried it and it does work because it's just a color clear. Now, like you did for the sheathing material, you just have one or two colors associated with that clear ridge cap material. And so when you pick that material, you can pick that material for your ridge cap, and it'll come in looking clear. It doesn't work if you try to pick a ridge cap color. Like if you have, it just doesn't quite work as well. It would be best if you just name it a different material.
Yeah, and gave it a color.
Well, it kind of has to be a different material, but I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we
haven't done this one before.
There you go. You got bronze clear. You changed the trim color, but not your ridge cap is set to roof color. But you do have clear gable trim. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and corner trim. Your corner trim is clear too.
Yeah, all my trims. This is the new thing.
Yeah, clear ridge cap options.
Yeah, it just works like that. That's why I said keep it. You don't want to do it in the colors. You want to do it as a separate material for your roof trim and your ridge cap just say clear ridge cap here as a material, and then you could set the color as an accent color. I think I did.
Just like you did for the clear sheathing. Yeah. You wouldn't want
Yeah.
to, you wouldn't want to set your roof color to be clear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So one of these would be a clear.
I have to see how I did it, but
It would have to be an accent color. You'd have to pick accent color for your ridge cap.
Yeah. So one
Because
of
right
these.
now your ridge cap is roof color. So if you switched it to trim color, your ridge cap would be clear because your trim is set to clear. So
Mm-hmm.
you'll have to click there you go. There you go, clear ridge cap. Lloyd asked, can the roof panels be cut short? And I believe, yeah. That's an add-on margin.
Mark, so when it comes to clear ridge cap, most people are going to want like an extra run of lumber, and then the ridge cap is wider, and it's actually, cutting the metal down farther. So there's several things we can do if we want to support it, but it's not going to be like your normal ridge cap.
I had just never heard of it. I couldn't imagine why you would want clear ridge cap. Unless you're doing a greenhouse, but even then, okay, so now your ridge board is getting sunlight on it. Congratulations.
That's why they're wider.
Most people say that the roof lights that we added cause too many roof leaks, so they won't use them, but they will use a clear ridge cap. Clear ridge cap doesn't leak near as quick, so that's the stance a lot of companies take.
Okay, so clear ridge cap, it sounds like that's a different animal that involves not just a different material that's clear, but also a ridge cap that's going to cause your roof sheathing to stop 3 feet short of the peak, and
there's some framing
or some distance down.
Yeah. Separate feature.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to add that to the list of things to do later.
Yeah, we'll get that on
so
the
we
list.
can kind of sort of do it, but not really. I think you could play some games with your purlin. You could control where the first purlin is from the peak. So if you made that first purlin 1.5 foot down, you can play those kinds of games, and it's under purlin framing, I believe. Yeah. Make that 1.6 foot.
Yeah. Definitely a separate feature though.
Yeah. And then I think you'd have to do some kind of margin on the trim, on the sheathing. And I think we've talked about that before with respect to like a vented ridge cap. When you have a vented ridge cap, you can't have your metal going all the way up and meeting at the peak, because then the air can't get out. And so there's a gap there, and I don't think that the roof sheathing margin is going to fix that.
No.
No, like roof sheathing margin. Yeah, set that to 1 foot. See what happens. I think you'd have to do -1 foot, because this is not a margin; it's an add-on.
We don't show it in the model, right?
I didn't think so. Yeah.
Well, I guess we do. That's interesting. Might be a little bug.
It's where the you're because of that margin. No, it's I don't know what it's doing there. That's weird. So we can get close to it, but the bottom line is we don't support it right now.
Yeah.
Uh, ooh, Marlon's got a good one that I know Brendan has asked for before. Um, what we fantasized about Marlon is being able to, um, you know, go ahead and turn the frame or the shell off, Sean.
So I'll just jump in here and say what I was thinking.
Yeah, and just if you zoom in there, Sean, and just hover over one of those pieces, being able to right click that piece and say not just what is this, but what are the things that are important about this? How do I change this thing? So I could right click on that the gable subfascia, I believe it is, and right click on that piece, and it would say, oh, this is this material. It's a gable subfascia. Here's the settings you have for gable subfascia. I could right click on a purlin, and it would not only tell me what the material is and what the usage is, but it would also tell me that, oh, here's your settings for purlins. Your purlins are 3 foot on center. You can go, oh, I want it 2 foot on center. So you don't have to go searching through the details to find the setting in question. You can just click on a piece and all of the settings would come up there.
That's right.
Marlon,
I mean,
did you have
one thing that,
yeah.
well, one thing that will happen frequently is you end up with, let's say, you put in a door or an attached building, you end up with a board sticking out, and you'll wonder, why is that there? Another thing I was kind of referencing is, let's just say you're working with formulas and things like that. Sometimes it's hard for me to know, not being around it for as long, what all the tokens mean. I might call it something totally different. I guess it's probably two different questions.
Yeah, as far as the tokens, that would be a different question, but the same kind of thing. Yeah, so as far as looking at a part and going, why is that there? What I always do is I'll go to the drawings. So if you go to drawings, like the example we were just looking at was the gable. So go to drawings, go to assembly drawing for roof 1. And look at that piece on the end, J. Oh, that's a gable subfascia. Oh, okay. That's what that is. Now at least I have a clue what I should go looking for. Now I can go to details and go to roof framing and look at gable subfascia and see why that is a 2x4. It's a 2x4 because I told it to be.
Would that even apply to something like posts? Like, for instance, recently had a situation where I had a door that I was putting in the center of a building, and it wanted to put an extra post 1 foot off to the edge. If I centered the door, the post would jump to the other side if I moved it slightly over. And I didn't really feel like I needed that post in my drawing. I guess you could go in there and figure out what the usage of that post is and then turn it off.
Yeah, so you can see in this one, there's post and there's jam post. Different materials for post and for jam posts. We got 2 jam posts and 2 regular posts in this particular wall. What it doesn't tell you is that is an overhead door jam post. No, that is a slider jam post.
Okay.
Is looking
It
at
gives
there.
you a start,
So
though.
that at least gives you a start. But yeah, it is something that has come up quite a bit, and
I definitely think that
I
should
wish
help me out.
there was a magic bullet. Yeah. And that is something that we work towards is it's called discoverability, right? It's the ability for somebody who doesn't know anything about this software to go and go, what's this? Oh, that's what that is.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the sort of the litmus test, and we don't do a very good job of that all the places that we should.
Well, they say if you add more
And
features, you just increase the manual. So, there's that side of it too. The more power there is
oh
there, the harder it is to learn it.
yeah. If we didn't have all these darn customers, this job would be a piece of cake. All right, guys. Well, I think we've taken up enough of your time today. We appreciate you guys coming and giving us feedback. Again, as Keith mentioned earlier, we are customer driven. We just write this stuff. We don't actually use it. So we rely on you guys to tell us, hey, this is great, but, and we do love to hear it's great. And we need to hear but. So appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.